just for the moment, and we see also the other speakers. Is that all right for you?
Sure.
Because otherwise we would have to turn around all the time and there's 3 online speakers. So that would be... So since we have plenty, everyone gets one. One can have 2.
I'll introduce you, okay?
Okay, perfect. And then, all right. We have still people in the coffee break.
Let's resume our work. So I kindly ask you to come back to your places, please.
Hello.
Yeah. And we are starting panel number 2, technical innovations for accessibility. And so I'm honored to welcome our second panel. We have as moderator Sabine Lobnig, is that okay? From SL Consultant. In this session, we'll explore how technology can support inclusive justice systems for children with disabilities. Giampiero Lupo and Giada Pacifico from CNR join us online. We'll open by discussing the model, the multidisciplinary cooperation system. And we'll have also Camille Latimier from SPMP, also online, and David Baines here with us, also from SL Consultant. And also here with us, Pedro Encarnação from the Association for the Advancement of Assistive Technology in Europe. So thank you all, and the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you for the kind introduction. Can I just check online? I see Camille, which is great, one of our speakers. Are Giampiero and Gianna here as well? Are they? Ah, yes, now they appear on my screen as well. Wonderful. Good. Good to see you. All right. So welcome to the second panel. First of all, thanks to the first panel, because it did all the groundwork of creating the basis on which we will build our second panel. We will try to pull off the hybrid meeting with having 3 people here in presence and 3 people online. And we'll do our best to make it work. So I will start with the introductions, which will be short and cannot possibly do justice to our speakers, because I calculated this morning we have altogether over 100 years of experience. So, yeah, that's a lot, right? So some of us are older than others, but
More experience.
More experience. But it's over 100 years. So it's impossible to capture everything that all the people on the panel have done, so I will keep it very short, but I hope that it will pique your interest and that you go check them out afterwards on the website and online, because they have a lot of experience in different areas, and it's always great to tap into that pool of expertise and information. So I will quickly present our panel, starting with, I just go by random order where I have taken my notes. I start with Giampiero Lupo. He's from the National Council of Research in Italy, is a researcher at the Lecco branch of the council, and worked at different universities, including Bologna and Siena, has over 10 years of research experience on the impact of ICT in the judicial system, in the justice system, and is the author of over 20 publications on the subject. He is flanked by Giada Pacifico, so we have then later on, when they're speaking both on the screen, participating online. Giada is a PhD candidate and also working in the National Research Council. She is doing criminal procedure law at the University of Salento and has also authored numerous scientific publications and is very much interested in the protection of crime victims. Then our third online speaker is Camille Latimier from Czechia Inclusion. Over 15 years of experience in rights of persons with intellectual disabilities, specialized on legal capacity and supported decision-making, the director of Inclusion Czech Republic, You will then hopefully correct the name of the organization. Advisor to the Czech Ombudsman in disability issues, also a member of the board of Inclusion Europe, and has several degrees from several universities. And then I switch to our in-person people. We have Pedro, still acting president of AAATE. So that is the Association for the Advancement of Assistive Technology in Europe, where we really specialize on technology developed to overcome barriers, specifically for people with disabilities, and all the international European insight that comes with it. Pedro is also professor at the University Católica Portuguesa, yeah, here from Lisbon, so you have the local knowledge. But you're in general specialized on control and robotics and assistive technology for children with neuromotor impairments. Wonderful. And now we have David. And David is sort of, yeah, he's the gray eminence of assistive technology and of accessibility in Europe, so everyone knows him. With the additional benefit that he has one foot in assistive technology and one foot in accessibility, which brings two siloed areas together, which is really precious. He is head of Equitable AI Alliance, General Secretary of DEAD Europe, leads Access and Inclusion Services, co-founder of Global Symbols, and in particular also has experience in basically all the continents except for Antarctica, which is what I believe, but which is particularly interesting when it comes to the symbols, because in particular symbols are very much culturally determined, and so there's a big difference the kind of symbols we use in Europe as compared to Middle East, Americas, and all the other continents. So that is a very precious global view. And then comes to myself, so I'm happy to work with David as a team in the LINK project as a partner. I work with international associations such as AAATE and also industry associations focused on ICT accessibility and digital accessibility. And I've also accumulated over 10 years of experience. I noted with a little bit of scare. All right, that's for just showing you the wealth of expertise on this panel. And then I get to introduce you to Work Package 3. Which is following on Work Package 2, where all the research was done, and in the whole output builds very much on the work that was done and demonstrated beautifully by Alexandra's panel just before. So Work Package 3 is called Accessible Information Systems. And accessibility, you will see, is not straightforward, because just when I tell you the first output of this project, you will see that we fail in giving it an accessible name, because it is the Model Multidisciplinary Cooperation System. And it took us forever to figure out what this is going to be. But I'm very thankful that we have Giampiero and Gianna here on the panel, because they will demystify what this will mean. But the objectives of this work package in particular was to improve the capacity of the stakeholders, in particular the acting parties in the justice system, to accommodate children with intellectual disabilities and psychosocial disabilities, to understand their needs, to understand their barriers, and there are many, 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 as we heard in the reports just before, and then to be able to determine the appropriate accommodation. But not only that, to also have the principal understanding of how I interact and how I can approach and treat those children and also everything around it. And then we set out to optimize the existing information, communication, and cooperation systems to enable an effective individual assessment, as it was also explained in the panel before, and then also to facilitate child participation. And all of that, hopefully with the help of the digital information system. So I'm pretty sure everyone who doesn't already know about Work Package 3, I just lost with this short introduction. Because it's very, very hard to just be accessible in our explanation and try with easy words to explain what we want to do. But so the very breakdown of it is, we want to be accessible for child victims with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities, and want to create a digital information system that can help get us there, more or less. All right? Thankfully, I have my expert panel to help us explain how we do that. So, first on my list is Giampiero and Gianna. They are participating online, and as I mentioned, they will demystify what the model multidisciplinary cooperation system is and can look like. Trying to switch over. Let's give it a moment.
Can you hear us?
Yes, perfect.
I'll try to share the screen, but this is not possible to share it.
Okay.
Okay, up until. Can we share the presentation?
Yeah, I'm sure the technical team is on it. Let's give it a moment. Let's see. Something is happening in the background, so I think they're working
Yeah, I'm
on
very
it.
sorry, but we have to try to security and privacy.
So in the meantime, I give a fair warning to all the participants who are not on the panel. There will be sort of a quiz, or at least active participation demanded from you in the second half, so no sleeping off in between.
We're having some problems with sharing our screen, actually. So we will try to connect with my computer. Is it possible to wait just some seconds?
Yeah, sure. Should we switch it?
For that?
I mean, it's difficult to switch it around because I think Camille will kind of build on your presentation.
Sorry, yeah.
So,
I will try.
yeah, no worries. Well, we have coffee and sweets on the table, so I think people can just...
You took our sweets away.
That is true. I took away the sweets
All
off
our
the
sweets
panel.
away, Pedro. The handbag at the back, she emptied it all into there. It was very sad to
Well,
watch.
yeah, you know, you have to work and then it's lunch break anyways. All right, we see you have a second screen. That worked. So, yeah, we see something coming up. I think, yes, perfect. We see your presentation. Yes. Now you're full screen, but you're still muted. I mean, we do have sign language interpreters here, but probably not for Italian. Okay, the suspense is mounting.
Okay, sorry.
Good.
Sorry. Okay, we had some issues. Now you can see the screen, but probably this shared from Axel. So it's okay. I will ask Axel to go on with the slide. So first of all, thank you for the invitation and also for the presentation by Sabine. And actually today we will talk about this, let's say, deliverable of the project, of the LINK project, which regards the proof of concept regarding the implementation of a technological solution for improving access to justice of victims with disabilities, and in particular victims, children victims. So please, next slide, Axel. Okay, thank you very much. So the idea has been to create a multifunction, multi-role app This meaning that this imaginative app that we are designing, so we will not arrive, just for clarity, we will not arrive to the implementation phase, so we don't know actually how it will react in the application in the real world, but still we had the possibility to imagine it basing our ideas on what we have found during the research on the field and the involvement of stakeholders and also children with disability and victims with disability. So the idea has been to create this app in order to connect, first of all the actors that are involved in victims support operation, coming from the, let's say, justice system, like lawyers, judges, etc., or outside, like anti-violence centers and other types of support services. The idea is also to provide a sort of point of access for all the victims that want to file a complaint or try to be involved in a proceeding. The idea has also been to make this system the more available as it is possible. So to imagine its application on a website or apps on Android and iOS. And also to try to support the most inclusivity we can through the use of up-to-date solution for the accessibility of persons with disability on the basis also of the regulation that discipline the topic on the countries in which the blueprint is applied. And finally, the idea has been also to support the security of the system, since we have to imagine how much sensitive are the information and data that are used and also shared in this kind of technologies. Next slide. Thank you very much. So the idea, first of all, is to have, as I said, point of context, where let's say any kind of victim can have access in order to file a complaint or be involved in the proceeding. So basically also share its data and and information relative to the crime the victim has suffered. So this point of access, of course, are, first of all, the one that are in use by the stakeholders that are involved in this kind of proceedings, as at the police, the courts, or social services and anti-violence center, but also we imagine the possibility through a questionnaire for the victims to file his data and his information regarding any type of crime, in order to also have, let's say, the possibility to do this, let's say, at home, and to share this information that are, of course, useful for the proceeding, or to activate the proceeding for all the stakeholders involved, first of all, the police and the courts personnel. Next slide. So the data that are, let's say, filed from the case management, from the points of access should be managed in some way. The idea is to have a case management system that connects all these points of access, and that's help to manage the data that are filed. And all this kind of data are, of course, important not only in terms of case management system, as we will see later on, they will be used and will be the base for other services which are we think very, very useful for this kind of procedure. And also now it is not possible to go too much in detail, but the idea is that the access to those kind of data is in some way different from the type of role that the actor has. And this also with the idea to support the security and the share and limit the share of data that are not useful for the activity that is implemented in that time. And another important sorry, Axel, just 1 second, and then I'll pass over. Another important thing to say is that this blueprint that I am presenting now is a very generic concept that can be applied, or that should be applicable in different contexts, national contexts. In fact, another part of the project has been to imagine how it will happen, the application of this kind of blueprint in a real case scenario in the national context that we selected as Italy, for instance. And in order to do so, we imagine different types of, let's say, application, or let's say different types of solution for the application of the system. In the case of the case management system, you can see that we have different kind of actors that are connected jointly, and the idea here, for instance, for what regards the application, is to imagine, or one way, that is the one of the major interoperability with all the system already in place, which is of course the best case scenario, very difficult to apply, or a situation in which we don't have any type of interoperability and the system works in parallel. In this case, of course, there is the possibility that some activity of data filing are redundant and can be done twice, because we have two systems working at the same time. But you have to imagine how it is also useful to have a system that allows for the sharing of data and information between different actors. And so in order to support this, let's say, usability, this kind of redundancy can be overcome. So next slide, now Axel is okay to go on. So one application of the data that we gather, or two applications, are, first of all, the possibility to do a sort of risk assessment. So in order to identify the risks of a repetition of the crime suffered from the victim, or the risk of secondary victimization. This on the base of some factors of the data that are stored in the database. For instance, factors that regard disability, crime committed in domestic environment, number of episodes. All this data on the basis of, let's say, of the past data that are managed in the case management system can be useful in order to understand how these kind of factors are connected to risks. And so in order to identify vulnerability and the risks of vulnerability. Also, this data can be used for the assessment regarding procedural accommodation on the basis of other factors, as for instance, the type of disability and the necessity of having the assistance of assistive technologies, for instance, in order to be part of the proceeding. Next slide. Another service that we thought could be important is to have an internal secure or encrypted secure chat for all the actors that are coordinating for the support of victims. This in order to support not only an effective collaboration, but above all traceable collaboration and a sort of monitoring. We will see later why we need monitoring, because we will have a centralized, let's say, monitoring function from an actor specifically designed, let's say, in the project. And also all the this kind of communication should be and will be, at least in our proof of concept, supported by the highest level of security through encryption methods. Next, please. So, as I said, this anticipate the cybersecurity issue. This is very important because we have to imagine that we have, first of all, we are storing data with a high level of sensitivity, and also we are exchanging information and data, which are very sensitive, and so the security should be at the highest level. So for these two, let's say, activity, we will have for the case management system the use of blockchain technology in order to ensure the security and of the stored data. For data flow, I already anticipated the use of a data encryption and the most state-of-the-art secure file transfer protocol. So this is the model in general. As I said, this has been also imagined how it would be applied in the national context that we analyzed. And we will start with Italy, since we have Giada that worked on the application on the general model in Italy, and she will continue the presentation. Thank you, Giada.
Thank you, Giampiero. Thank you, Sabine. Good morning. Axel, we have the, okay. I will explore the adaptation of the model just described by Giampiero to the Italian national context. Next slide. Okay. In the Italian version of Diana, the access points that allow the acquisition of data will be adapted as the following. Citizens and victims will access through a direct authentication based on the so-called SPID system, the Italian Public Digital Identify System. In order to facilitate the inclusion and participation of children and children with disability, Diana also allows the authentication via electronic ID card. For justice professionals, the Diana access point will be provided through interoperability with the systems already developed and in place. For instance, police will access through an authentication to the criminal report portal, prosecutor's office, judge and court staff through an authentication to the console of the criminal trial online, and lawyers through an authentication to the telematic service portal of the Ministry of Justice. For support services and anti-violence centers who use different database management systems, it's not realistic to think of implementing interoperability between the various systems with the Diana case management system. Therefore, Diana will be used as a system in parallel or standalone, so the data populated can be exchanged by the other actors as police. Next slide. Okay, the data acquired through the different access points will include contact details, description of crime, investigative materials or evidences, risk assessment factors, and factors related to procedural accommodation assessment. Next slide. The data stored in the Diana case management system will be made secure by blockchain technology, as Giampiero already said, and will be used for two fundamental functions of the application. First, the automatic evaluation necessary for the activation of any procedural accommodations. This assessment will be based on multiple factors, including gender, age, disability, but also personal, social, and emotional background of the victim, also based on the Italian law. Based on these factors, the system will suggest the type of procedural accommodation to be applied in the various stages of the procedure. Then, the risk assessment related to recidivism. This assessment will be based on other different factors, including type of crime, manner of the offense, previous compliance, lack of victim support services, abuse of alcohol or drugs, also based on the Italian law. Next slide. Okay, the Diana online version or the cell phone app dedicated to citizens will provide simplified legal information, for example, the procedure for filing a complaint, essential procedural information such as competent court or date of the next hearing, and information related to the nearest support service identified through the geolocation function. The expert system will be based on official sources like the Italian Constitution, the civil and criminal law, and the criminal procedural law. Next slide. The Italian version of Diana, also the Italian version of Diana, will include the implementation of an internal secure chat that will support the coordination and the exchange of communication and documents between actors that are involved in the victim support and protection procedures. This function will provide for the supervisor, the so-called victims navigator, to screen communication and assess whether all procedures have been correctly followed and whether victims have received appropriate protections, especially from secondary and repeated victimization and procedural accommodation. The final slide. In order to comply with Italian laws related to inclusivity of ICT technology for people with disability, Diana will be equipped with different assistive technologies and inclusive methods. Regarding the inclusion of children and victims with a lack of knowledge of legal terms, information provided through the application will be simplified and based on the use of accessible language. Thank you for the attention.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Giampiero and Gianna. That was compact information in a very short period of time. I mean, of course, you cannot explain a complex system in 10 minutes, but just fair warning, I'm breaking the session flow and will right now ask the people in the room or online if there are any questions, because I think now we still have it fresh in our mind what Giampiero and Gianna explained to us. So if there are questions, I think it might be now that they are coming up. And I see one hand coming up. I have a spare micro. Oh, you have already one coming your way.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Carmen. I'm from APAV, the Portuguese Association for Victim Support. And I would just like to ask or to clarify what are the organizations involved in the system? Because I understand that to be able to work in practice, they are going to have like a parallel, I don't know the exact words that we're saying, but like a parallel system operating and not interoperability system. This is the hardest word ever. In Portuguese also, so it's hard in every language for sure. So what are the entities involved? That was just for clarification purposes.
Giampiero or Gianna, would you like to jump in? I think there was the one slide where you had all the stakeholders involved. Yeah, I think you need to wait until you're unmuted by the organizer. Not sure where the organizer has gone. They're all back there.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So actually, the idea of interoperability is very different, very difficult word. Interoperabilità in Italian is the same. So I understand that. So the idea is that you imagine that we have different kind of stakeholders. We can list in general, but of course we have the courts, so judges and all the court staff that is involved. Then we have lawyers. In support, of course, of victims. Then we have any kind of support services. In Italy, we have centri antiviolenza and other kind of association that can provide support. And then we have also health bodies that may be involved. So all these kind of actors. Usually, from what we have found in our research in the countries analyzed and above in Italy, are not really connected directly, and they exchange information during the procedure. So the idea is to have, let's say, a centralized platform that can help and support this exchange of information and data. If we have complete interoperability in the best world scenario, then we will have systems that are already in place that will be connected between each other and can be connected through an API or any kind of other system to the Diana database. So this is the best case scenario. It is, of course, not really. I mean, we have to understand that we are still in a sort of imaginative kind of procedure. So we are not We cannot see on the, let's say, on the real case, on the real world, how it will be applied, but we can imagine that we have different kinds of situations in the countries analyzed. And for instance, we may have countries where the technological system in use by police or in use by judges or court staff, etc., are not at the highest level of development. In some countries, we also saw that still some procedures are paper-based. So when we have this kind of situation, we can imagine that this kind of platform can be used in parallel, meaning if I receive, I have a victim, I have to file a complaint, I will use my system, if I'm from the police, but also Diana in the same time. This is redundant, I know, but if you use also Diana, all the information that are in Diana can be shared through the case, through the platform and by the use of the case management system, and also it helps to support as a training base all the other services that are linked to risk assessment and procedural condition assessment. So this is the idea. The problem with interoperability is that it is not possible to have it in all situations. In the Italian situation, we can imagine that can be possible to have interoperability between Diana and the systems in place in the justice system, because they are already there, they are already developed. And so we are not at the highest level of development, but we are at fair enough level of development, and we can imagine a kind of connection. We may not call it interoperability, we may call it connection between the two systems. Sorry, probably I took too much time to answer.
No, thank you, Giampiero. I think that was a valuable addition. And even, I mean, of course, a full integration, full interoperability would be the most efficient outcome. But I guess we will see, and probably Camille will touch on that in the national adaptation, there will be a lot of resistance for data protection, for whatever concerns. But even if we have only the lowest level of implementation, like, for example, having the app, so that, you know, as we said, child victims, they very often don't know, am I a victim or not? So even if I have this low-level access and can file a complaint or try to file a complaint and test something without having to go to the police or to an official setting, and then maybe having a second step of implementation where actual procedural accommodation recommendations can be generated, already having that as a parallel system would be immensely helpful if I listen to all the barriers that we just listed. Okay, but not now taking away more time from Camille. I will give you the stage, and you will be talking about trying the national implementation and probably the many challenges that come with that.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me well.
We hear you well.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if I will be able to share my presentation.
Something is coming up, yes.
Okay.
We see it.
Great, okay. So I'm not going to be technical because this is not my area of expertise, but I'm going to tell you a little bit of how we've been thinking about the adaptation to the Czech Republic. And Sabine, just for you, I mean, people use Czechia, people use Czech Republic. It doesn't matter, but this is why there were two different names, actually.
Very
just
good to know.
In my presentation, yeah. So, so my initial thoughts when I read the model was, of course, important for me in terms of advocacy, because we are primarily also an advocacy organization, to link the model with the existing barriers, which we described in a national report, which was discussed in the first session this morning. And also in line with the recommendation we made in the report. And the second thing, because I've been doing advocacy also a lot with the Ministry of Justice, I have some experience, and so I wanted the model and the proposal to somehow, first of all, be really realistic, and at the same time really fit into as maximum in the current structure, to make sure that what we would promote and propose would be applicable in reality. So let me start with some of the challenges, and there are probably many more than the one I'm going to describe today. But first of all, as some colleagues said this morning, we really have very little experience about what works and what does not work because of the fact that there are so little, such a small number of children with intellectual disability or psychosocial disabilities in the system. So that's the first thing. A second thing is this combination of knowledge, legal knowledge, knowledge on intellectual and psychosocial disabilities, knowledge about technologies, and you need to find out, information from all sides and put that together to work on this. So it's a challenge. The other thing that I found challenging was it took me some time to find out who was responsible for what. For example, in terms of e-justice competencies, who is putting this into place, and so on and so forth. So just finding the right people to talk to be able to, describe the possibilities into the Czech system, despite not be for people dealing with technologies, but definitely also in terms of legislative changes and so on and so forth. It took a little bit of time. And then there was one big question for me, is the age question, because at least here in the Czech Republic, to have an ID card is obligatory from 16 years old only. And so the e-identification, to be identified as a citizen in a system works from 16 years old only, and also it needs to be authorized by your parents. So even in the case of this availability for younger people in the future, there is the question whether, and this is probably a question that different countries might answer differently depending on the opinions of different people around. There will be the question whether parents would make that available in the case of children with disabilities, because there's always the fear of abuse, which is very important for this group of children. After finding out who was responsible for what, I had really good consultations with stakeholders at the Ministry of Justice, both in the Victims Department, in charge of legislative changes, in the e-Justice Department, also with victims organization. And I also had the chance to discuss a little bit some aspect with children through another activity of the project where we've been involving children with and without disabilities. So to go to the consultation, I basically prepared something that linked new technology with human support, because the situation in the Czech Republic is very similar to what colleagues described this morning. So I was really careful about bringing to the table what would be the ideal model, both from support for children with disabilities, both the human support and the technological support. And so I won't enter into the details, but I thought about how the human support, or basically the support for victims with intellectual disabilities, should be improved in the system, and how this should be reflected in with technology, and how technology could help to make this a reality. And so for me, there is a key element. I'm just saying it in one sentence, is the fact that I think to make the justice system more accessible to children, but also adults with intellectual disabilities, it's really necessary to have a justice facilitator, for example, a justice intermediary, depending on the vocabulary, it's used differently in different countries. But we don't have this at the moment. So I was really trying, to think about that from a technological point of view, from communication flows between the different actors in the system, and from the idea that we have a case management system which is available to all the actors into the system. So there was also part of it a reflection of who should do that in the Czech system, and we decided to make a proposal based on services that are already existing and are part of the justice system, also to make sure that it would be accessible to technology through the technology of the justice system, which is managed by the Ministry of Justice, and make sure that this would be accessible everywhere in the country. Because if you think about having justice facilitators, for example, through NGOs, then there would be the question of the financing, the question of the regional accessibility in more remote areas, and the also because of all video conferencing and other elements of the system should be available. So after discussion, I discover, and sorry, I adapted your model, Giampiero, with some Czech symbols or things that are here understandable to people. It seems that the ministry is actually preparing something that could look like, as far as my knowledge of technology allows it, that basically could support interoperability, because this is what the ministry is putting into place. So not for the moment on criminal cases. We are starting with other part of the justice system, but the ambition is that in the future, so we are talking about maybe 5 to 10 years, every citizen should be able to access his or her file online, and that should be available by all the actors of the system. Now came more questions with that, which I didn't myself really envisage, but I had a very good discussion with the people at the ministry, and of course, as the law said, there is a paragraph in the criminal code who can access, and of course, in practice, everybody should access the case as for the paper file, as the electronic file. It should be the same. Now, for example, we discussed because of the use of video conferencing, the use of children's, sorry, just lost the word, when children are talking to the specialized police officer, this is also registered. And so there were discussions whether that element should be part of the file or not, because there could be secondary victimization if those videos or those recordings are available. So at the moment, the person in charge at the ministry was in favor of not putting that into the electronic file. So then there is a question to whom that should be available, and it's a protection of the child, but how should the child should be available to that? Because one thing that they said is that there would not be different level of access into the electronic file. And then there was another issue. It's, for example, there is an issue of deadline and about confirming that you have received some elements as part of the procedure. So, for example, normally at the moment, if you receive a registered letter, you should go to the post office, sign that you have received the letter, and then you have from that date a number of deadlines to react or to have the possibility to appeal or whatever. And so this is also an issue that we discuss. We haven't found, of course, an answer right now. Maybe there are some issues regarding this, but basically that was also an issue that we discussed at the ministry. So very briefly, and also I discussed with the children, one of the things that they really or choose praise or we're very positive about was the possibility to use video conferencing, because when we've been working with the kids, they really didn't like the specialist room that the police has for interviewing and discussing with children. So they actually thought that it's really nice to be able to have the possibility to connect to the police through the video conferencing system. So I just wanted to mention that specific point. So yeah, just as a conclusion, I wanted to say that yeah, for me it was really a challenge to go through all that points, but I think it was very positive to try to mix some of the recommendation of the national report with the ideal model of Diana, and see where we could make sure that technology supports those improvements in terms of human resources. And I hope I have managed to push the debate a little bit here also with the authorities. So I hope my presentation was clear and not too quick, and I'm looking forward to questions.
Thank you, Camille. No, I think that was a beautiful demonstration of what it means to take the theoretical blueprint and then try to think it through on the national level and what kind of questions come up immediately. And as it seems, it's a very opportune time to ask those questions in the Czech Republic. So maybe there is, I would say we have the foot in the door, so maybe we see it implemented in the next 5 to 10 years. So are there any immediate questions to Camille on the national implementation or any of the challenges that might come up? Yes, Alexandra, do you have a mic?
Well, then I'll keep this one to myself. I just wanted to kind of emphasize one thing, maybe as a matter of a footnote, and going back to the first session that I moderated, which is about individual needs assessment. And this is also what we try to work with Giampiero and the team. And that is to be able to capture individual needs and then make the system respond to these individual needs. And just talking about some issues that Camille has mentioned around accessibility of recordings in the system, like whether you make it available or not, or the use of rooms versus online interviews. It's really important to think about systems that can do both whenever possible. And that will be driven by victims' individual needs. And just, you know, like we talk about child participation, etc. We know we have testimonies of children, okay, maybe not with disabilities, but children, because child is everyone who's under 18 years of age. And especially like teenagers, adolescents, want to also feel empowered to make their own choices and to participate. And sometimes we have that the default solution, for example, is for the child to testify from Barnahus, or for their identity to be protected, or to be like physically divided from the offender. And then their own need is actually to be confronted and feel empowered to kind of tackle this challenge of speaking about their experience in front of this person who did it to them. And I think that it's just important to kind of understand that the system ideally should enable these individual needs to be captured and then responded to through the system as well.
Thank you, Alexandra. And I think very important point, because there will never be a standard solution, right? The individual needs are extremely important. And that brings me to David, because actually the only way we're going to find out about the individual needs is to actually talk or communicate with the children and with AAC users that might not be as straightforward as we might think.
No, there are a few challenges.
So I trust in you to educate us, and also on giving us a few tools at hand on how to better do it.
Oh, you're so silly to trust me. If I can have my presentation up, that would be great.
Yes, and in the meantime, just I also invite all the people online, if you have questions, please post them in the chat, and then I will ask Axel to monitor that and let us know if there are questions online. But David, you can start talking
Can I?
without the slides. I'm sure you can.
No. You know when you talked about years of experience, so this is my 40th year in this field. Oh, there's my slides. That's great. And my memory is now called PowerPoint. So if there's no slides, I don't remember what I was supposed to say. Okay. So, I'm going to talk about how we give access to justice for AAC users. And we're going to start with a sort of basic principle, which is if we don't have a shared language, a shared vocabulary, then we can't communicate. And without the ability to communicate, to interact as stakeholders in the justice system, then we can't really engage or guarantee inclusion in the justice system.
Can I just very shortly interrupt you? I don't think that the people online can see the slides because we don't have them here on the screen. They're coming up now.
And that means I can see them as well. Okay, that's great. So we can't engage and interact with the justice system. So what we're going to just talk about is some work we did to develop a vocabulary for AAC users, the language which they needed to interact with the other stakeholders. And we really needed to understand the challenge to do that. So around communication, we really needed to understand, what do we need to say? What are the terms, the language that we're going to need? How can we say it? What are the different ways in which we can use symbols and other AAC systems to communicate? The really important aspect as to whether or not the communication partners understand what we're saying in the way that we're saying. But one of the challenges, which is really important, is the concept of assumed competency. One of the reasons why many AAC users do not get access to justice is nobody assumes that they are competent to participate. If they're not assumed to be competent, that's often based on their ability to communicate. So these things are very, very closely related in terms of that access to justice. But just when I'm speaking about this, I just want to just expand ever so slightly. As we were looking at communication, very, very informally at the early stage, we spoke to adults who, at some point in their lives, these are adults with disabilities, had been linked to the justice system in some way or the other. And they weren't only victims, but they did have some shared and common themes in terms of communication. So one group, very small group, talked to us about, I was asked to be the witness to a crime. And in fact, the only witnesses to the crime, which was against another person with disability, was me as an AAC user. But I couldn't understand what was expected of me and what my rights were as a witness. So I was very nervous, very scared of giving testimony. In another case, one gentleman explained, I was accused of stealing from a shop. I was the accused. I wasn't guilty. He had autism. I had made a mistake. I didn't understand what I was supposed to do in the shop. But after I was arrested and the police spoke to me, I did not understand what was happening. I did not understand why this was happening. So access to justice, yes, of course it's about victims. But victims of misjustice can be those accused. And of course, the witnesses are equally important. So we began 2 years ago in Budapest when we started this process. We didn't actually think we could create a symbol system in the 2 years. We thought this was going to be complex. But in that 2 years, something changed in the technical environment. Generative AI became widespread. And at Global Symbols, working with Sabine, we began to develop a system for generating new symbols based on images and text prompts. And we realized that actually maybe we could create large numbers of symbols for the justice system through that combination of image and text. But we had some key principles that we needed to apply, because these weren't just pictures. First of all, the symbols should be open. Anybody in the justice system and beyond should have access to the symbols. The symbols should, as much as possible, be familiar. They should be understandable to the AAC user. They should reflect location, language, and culture. They should integrate with any symbol set that a child was using already. And they should fit with a schema. Now, a schema is the rules by which any symbols are designed. And there are a number of things such as plurals, possessives, past, future, tenses, and so on, that are consistent within a symbol set. If we don't stick to those rules, then the child won't understand what's within the symbol. So these were some of the key principles that we applied. And the first thing that we needed to do was build the vocabulary. And this wasn't as straightforward as it sounds. Now, when I talk about this process, I would really love to pretend that we thought this through step by step and followed a systematic methodology that was valid and verifiable externally. But I would be lying. It was chaos. Throughout, what I'm going to is a idealized version of the process we followed. Because what actually happened in practice is we were constantly gathering information. We were reviewing, refining. We were going 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, no steps sideways as we worked through the process. But I do think at the end of that, we do have a process which actually does work for further development of vocabulary and symbols, not just in justice, but beyond. So the first thing was desk research. This was the easy part, which was actually just looking up online and trying to find the most common language and terminology used in justice systems. I'm going to be honest, we had to work with English because that was the only language we spoke. But I think that a number of the terms translate reasonably well. We looked at input from partners, what you were all saying about some of the language that was being used, particularly as we were developing the child advisory boards, and we reviewed documents. We chose a number of open symbol sets to start with. And these were the 4 symbol sets that we used. Arasac is a Spanish open symbol system, very widely used in lots of parts of Europe. Jello actually comes from India, so has a very different cultural background, which is much the same as Tawasul, which actually came from the Middle East and Arabic speakers. And Mulberry, which was more focused on adults than children. But we recognized that young adults were part of what we were trying to work with. And we had to then identify the priority terms. So we took all of those multiple sources and filtered them for the most commonly used terms. And we began to push out some of the more outlying terms and focused on the priorities. What were the most important words and phrases and concepts that people needed to be able to use and talk about? And then came the interesting bit. This is where the technology kicked in. We have on our website at Global Symbols a thing called Symbol Creator AI. I'm going to have to give a nod here to Microsoft, who actually funded the AI development and are still funding that at the current time. And what you do is you select a symbol or image which is most similar to the concept you want a new symbol for. You then put in a text prompt and you choose the symbol style that you want. What will then happen is it will generate a minimum of 4 symbols based on that information you've given it. Once those symbols go up, you choose the result that you think is most appropriate. that is most useful. You can remove the background, you convert it to an SVG, which is the most flexible system. But you can also do two things. You can regenerate. If none of those symbols are good enough, you can regenerate. Or you can manually edit the symbol. Now, anybody who's used generative AI in the past will know that it does odd things at times. We have many six-fingered people, and we have lots of sheep with 5 legs. So being able to manually edit and take some of those things out of images improves the quality of the symbol considerably. Once you've selected and edited and chosen the symbol for that concept, you can upload it to a collection. And that collection can be shared openly to anybody who might need that symbol in the future. What we then did was we built an additional bank of seeds. We found out in this process the quality of the initial image that you work from massively influences the quality of the symbol. So working with some colleagues at an AAC company in the UK, we used a different AAC model to build an additional bank of seeds. And these are photos. These are all AI-generated photos of the concepts. But if you choose from these as your seed and then apply your text prompt, you are more likely to get a much better symbol quality at the end. So you can see there's all sorts of symbols here: adoption, adult co-defendant, acquittal, accused. And all of these go into Symbol Creator AI to help us create better and better symbols for communication. We also used ChatGPT very recently. If you're really sad and obsessed with AI, like Sabine is, no, like I am, you realize that just recently ChatGPT launched quite a lot of work on how you can create images from text prompts and from your own photos. And probably the best known of these is the Studio Ghibli stuff, where lots and lots of people have been putting up photos of their family in a specific image style. But you can also actually use it to create symbols. So we have, if you look at the top 3 symbols we have here, these are all symbols that were generated for acquittal through ChatGPT. But what we realized was that whilst they didn't actually fit the schema for any single symbol set, so we took the ChatGPT symbols and put them into Symbol Creator AI, and then you can see 3 variations of the same symbol across the bottom, which are actually from different symbol sets: Arasak, Jello, and Tawasul. So children with different disabilities, from different cultures, different ethnic groups, represented different ways. This allows that symbol to both fit the schema and to be familiar. And then you'll find one of the most important parts. If you go on to globalsymbols.com, you'll find the link project symbol set. Somebody said earlier, we hope to see things available in 5 to 10 years. We decided we wanted to try and accelerate things a little bit for AAC users. So all of these symbols are available today. They're there for you to use now as part of the justice system, as advocates in working with people who AAC use. You'll see here we have different symbols for access to justice, for the accused, for avoiding undue delay, best interest of the child, all in multiple symbol sets. And when you click on some of those, in this case advocate or barrister, you'll see alternative symbols in different styles. All of these are open licensed and are available today. So when you go onto the site, you'll see some things there. You'll see these collections. So you'll see there's 2 big things here which we ask you to look at. There's the link project collection. That is the symbols created by this project as part of this project and available to you. But you'll also see legal or PyCom collection of AI realistic symbols, And those will help you in terms of those seeds you need for other symbols. Do let us know if you need more symbols, if there are other concepts that are needed. We'll do our best to generate and create those for you. Do use them. 3 different ways of saying thank you. But we'll only say thank you if the symbols have impact. So do use them. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Okay, so we had a beautiful arc of stories. We started with the blueprint, very high level, very technical. Camille brought us down already on the national level. What kind of questions do I have to ask? And then David brought us even on a more concrete level with a tool that's actually there that we can start using. Now I come to Pedro. I let you wait for a long time. But you are our precious third-party eyes. You know, you are not down the rabbit hole with all of us, where we have gone 2 years and we sunk quite deep in 2 years, gave us time to dig in. But from your perspective, I mean, I know you're already familiar with it because you're also part of our advisory board, and thank you for that. But from the outside perspective, tell us, does it make sense? Where do you see the challenges? Where do you see the opportunities? And what are for you the open questions that we haven't addressed?
All right. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to be here. It's really an honor and a privilege to be part of this project. As Sabine mentioned, I was not involved in the research team. I was involved in one of the expert panels. And as such, I had the opportunity of reviewing some of the materials that were produced. And allow me to start with a couple of things that always impressed me in all those materials. Perhaps you'll say that, why am I still impressed with that? It shouldn't be like that in all these projects, but unfortunately it's not. One of them was a strict human rights perspective all over the place, aligned with the latest WHO and UN policy documents. And another thing was the focus on the children and a big effort to raise awareness that children are not small-sized adults, and they do have particular needs. They do have their own culture. They think differently, and especially children with disabilities are unique, and each child has their own needs. Another thing that I would like to start by mentioning is that I believe that in a project like this, the major challenge was already overcome, which is sitting together around the same table, a transdisciplinary team willing to talk with each other, sharing the same language and addressing a common problem. So, and that was already achieved with this project, and congratulations with that. Now, talking a bit about technology, because that's what this panel is about, I would like to start with a word of caution about technology. So assistive technologies empower people with disabilities to participate in all the activities that they wish to participate, but they don't make miracles. And sometimes people think that technology are just devices. We just buy a device and all of a sudden we can do things, and we can buy a device for someone who has a disability, for example, someone who cannot speak. We just buy an AAC device and that person will be able to express themselves. But that's not the case. Unfortunately, there are some other steps. Assistive technology not only encompasses the devices, but also all the services around those devices, the selection, the training, the feeding, following up. So just a word of caution about it. Technology will help, for sure. And there are a lot of potential out there, especially with the new tools, with AI. There's a lot of potential out there, but there are other things that need to be taken into account. And another thing that is very important to realize is that the use of technology not only impacts the person that uses it, but also the other ones that interact with the person. So an AAC user needs to be competent in using the AAC device, but the people with whom the person is talking to needs to be knowledgeable in using that AAC system as well. Otherwise, the communication will not flow. So you mentioned challenges. What are the challenges? I was listening to the presentations and I picked some ideas that we can discuss further if we have time. So regarding this data management system, and Jen already mentioned the Italian law about accessibility, but from July onwards there will be in place this European Accessibility Act that will be enforced in all European countries, and all software will need to comply with this European Accessibility Act. So for a new system to be developed to make the judicial system accessible for all, will need to comply with that European Accessibility Act as well. And while I was listening to the features of that system, I listened a lot of worry about making the information that is there accessible for everyone that needs to consult that information. But there's the other side as well, which is having in place altering tools such that by default the system becomes accessible. When someone is entering information into the system, that person needs to enter the information in a way that it will be accessible for others. Okay, so altering tools, it's another, and that's in the European Accessibility Act as well. So in order to comply with that piece of legislation, these systems will need to have those altering tools. David mentioned AAC, which is AAC users, which is quite a challenge, having AAC users as victims or in any other role in the system. Vocabulary, it's something that for sure needs to be in place. Otherwise, people will not be able to speak about what they want to speak, but it will not be enough. So having only the symbols in place, there's a need for training on using those symbols. There are some challenges in making or accelerating things for AAC users, as you mentioned, because it's not only having the symbols in place, it's understanding those symbols, is knowing how to use those symbols. There's been a lot of research on iconicity versus modeling and motor patterns in using AAC systems. So it's not only having the systems, it's a huge first step, very important. Without the symbols, people will not be able to communicate at all, but it will take some time for the users to be able to use those symbols. And going back to the training materials that the project prepared are very, very good at raising awareness. But of course, we cannot expect that in those one-day trainings that are envisioned by the project, people will all of a sudden become experts in communicating with children with disabilities or in interacting with children with disabilities. But it's very important to raise awareness and that those children have particular needs, and there are people that are knowledgeable on those in fulfilling or in meeting those needs. So working in transdisciplinary teams is the key for success here. Of course, there's the need to develop the policies, the procedures, and finding ways of having these transdisciplinary teams working together. And of course, in the end, there will be the need for resources, not only physical resources, having courts accessible for all, and having these new IT systems that will make everything more accessible, but human resources will be needed, and those are a bit harder to get because it requires not only the will from the people to get involved in this, but also training, etc. and perhaps the most scarce resource today, which is getting the time. Okay? Involving people with disabilities in these processes will take time. Okay? And the processes will become a bit longer, and people will need to be prepared for that. So those are my first initial thoughts.
Thank you, Pedro. And I think that's exactly what we were looking for, this eagle perspective, and also bringing perspective back into where we went a little bit, maybe too focused on the technology. It was mentioned in between also in panel 2 that training is a crucial part. So I agree that probably we can do a lot in raising awareness. The training we cannot possibly facilitate. But then already just knowing that, okay, I need to look for a specialized person, that already is very good and very precious knowledge. Wonderful. So I totally overestimated how much time we're going to have. I thought 80 minutes, fantastic. We got to half of my program, just to let you know. I won't do that to you, that I take away your lunch break and go for the second half. Let's just have a look if there were any questions online. No? Okay, so they were gentle with us. Then I will skip all my questions. They might come as homework for the panelists, as a fair warning. I might send them afterwards. But just have a closing round, and since we really are running out of time, I would give every one of you just one, maximum 2 sentences. The third will be a penalty. So 2 sentences, where you can decide either a message to the collective, or a question, or a call for action. All right? And I will start this time with the panelists here in the room next to me, also to give the technologists time then to unmute first, then Camille, and then we will have the final one to going to Giampiero and Gianna. But reversed order, I start with Pedro. What would be your final message or call to action or question to the room?
Okay, 2 sentences, right? And this is already the first? Okay. So first, congratulations for what you have achieved in this project. Second, let us find ways in working in transdisciplinary teams to meet the needs of people or children with disabilities.
Perfect, thank you. David.
Ooh. I've no idea. No, okay, first one. I'm going to go back to that, something I said there. Assume competence. The starting point with engagement should be, we assume you can contribute, you can take part in justice, not that you can't. If we assume competence, then we look for evidence to prove that, rather than assuming that you're not competent and looking for you to disprove that assumption. So that would be my first one. And the second one is use the technology. Use the things that are being developed. One of the things that I did very recently, we had quite a complicated document sent to me, and I put it into ChatGPT and said, rewrite this for an 11-year-old. And you know what? I understood the document all of a sudden. So actually, we've got these technologies. One of the biggest barriers we face now is creativity and imagination, and apply that technology for the benefit of people with disabilities.
Okay, thank you,
Long
David.
sentences,
So
we do that in English.
Good compliance, Pedro. Bad compliance, David, because there was 20 and not 2. So
Angel and
stop.
demon, that's what it is, that's about right.
All right, handing over to Camille.
I want to just recall what I said at the end of my presentation. And so let's use the new technology to support the human support for people with intellectual disabilities. Coming back to the justice facilitator, I see how brilliantly he or she could use the images, pictograms that you've created, and how his report can, highlight the individual needs, not only communication, but needs of the person, and how that should be integrated in the case management system to really make sure that the person is well supported and that everybody is informed in the process. So that's my final point. And thank you all for contributing to that journey.
Thank you, Camille. Perfect. And then the final word to Giampiero and Gianna. You get 2 sentences each.
Okay, two sentences. One, I would recommend all partners and all the people interested to keep going with this kind of projects. I think we need now to try to apply what we imagine on a real case scenario. So let's try with new proposal and with new calls in order to go on with the project, because through application we will see what is missing, which challenges, which opportunities really we can have by applying this kind of system. And second, let's continue with the involvement of children in this project. We had, I have to say, for the first time, the opportunity to work with children through all the initiatives that we had with Link, like the cabs, etc. And I think the most valuable information on any kind of issue, and basically, of course, the issue that we worked on this project came from this kind of interaction. So I also thank the coordinator and all the partners that worked on the project that gave me this possibility to have this kind of opportunity. Thank you very much.
Great. And Gianna?
I am agree with Giampiero, and I want to highlight the importance of the digitalization of the criminal justice system in general, because it can be make more faster the support for victims and children, and it is very important. Thank you.
Wonderful. So a big thank you to my panelists. I learned a lot. I hope also it was worthwhile for all the others who listened. Thank you. And I guess I can dismiss you into the lunch break.
Yes, the lunch break is now. Please go with us. It's in the floor -1. You are all welcome to come with us. And we have 45 minutes, if possible, or 1 hour to have this break. Thank you very much.
Bye.